worry about how to
Got
get
it.
you out of trouble.
It's
recording.
Filming gets me in trouble.
Alright, it's recording now. Alright, well, y'all may probably remember me from last class, and y'all probably all know that I'm Muslim by now, from the last speech that I did, and some of y'all probably see me in the parking lot or whatever. So, today I would like to talk about basically two people, father and son, who hide behind the image of Islam, but they're actually like pretty hypocritical in everything that they do in all of their actions. So here's a brief little introduction of the main person I'll be talking about. He was born to a peasant family. He was always power hungry. He was first a leader amongst his peers, like people he grew up with. Then in the school he attended, he was also a leader. Finally got kicked out for conspiracy. Later he joined the military, he worked his way up to the leader of the army, overthrew the king. His name was King Idris. Then he went into power. As soon as he went into power, he started, I guess, ruling with an iron fist. He would basically squash anybody who would question his power or his leadership. And this is who I'm talking about. Mohamed Qaddafi. Does he look familiar to y'all? From the UN speech, if any of y'all watched it. He spoke for 100 minutes when he was supposed to speak for only 15. And he also called like the Taliban a peaceful group and so on and so forth. There's just so much to talk about him. And about what I'm going to be doing, there are a few things that I won't mention just because if I decide to go through every single crime that he has committed, it'll take, I guess, 3 classes or so. So now it's just going to be very brief on some of the major incidents. Alright? This right here is the Lockerbie bombing. Airplane actually went right into there. It looks like a big crater. This is after they picked up the pieces and all. This was the biggest terrorist attack known to man before the September 11th terrorist attack. One that was actually publicized. And 270 people died. That was basically everybody that was on board. It, of course, happened in the Scottish town of Lockerbie. And then, this happened in December of 1988. So about 9 months later, September of 1989, UTA Flight 772, which was flying from Congo, it was 10,700 meters in the air, and all 146 passengers died, and 14 crew members. So basically there were about 160 people who died on that, and that was the aftermath of it. It was coming from Congo, and it was supposed to be going to France, but it never made it there. It crashed in the Sahara Desert, and everybody was dead. And Qaddafi, the guy that we seen earlier, he was responsible for it, and he also helped contribute to it. He paid the money or whatever. And then, this is the third incident that happened. The third major incident I'll talk about. In 1996, so as y'all see, it's like every so on years, he's just doing something different. In 1996, there were 1,200 prisoners that died, that he murdered in 3 hours because they would question his authority. And most of them didn't even get a chance to go on trial. So we never know if they were innocent or if they were guilty of anything. So we don't even know what they were convicted of, what their crimes were. They were complaining about kind of treatment that they were getting in the prison and the food that they were receiving. It was just the way the prison was made, the whole system was just extremely corrupt. So does anybody over here have someone in prison that they know? Relative, anything? Yeah, I for one also do, and he's pretty close. He was a pretty close cousin of mine, but he should be coming out on parole soon, hopefully. And he was only 17 when he went in, but at least I know what he did wrong, and everybody has to pay the price or whatever. But I would never be able to forgive the government if they just decided to shoot him point blank in the head, along with 1,200 other people. And these are the families of the people. that died, that got massacred, that were murdered. They're holding up the pictures, as you can see. See how young he looks? I mean, just imagine that was someone that you knew, that was a brother or someone that, let's say, possibly there was conspiracy or something. You know how us Americans always like to talk about the government, and we always question the government and the things that they like to, that they're doing, or their whatever they're in within the international community and all the affairs that they're going through, all the foreign affairs. We always question the wars that they're in, the treatment of the people, how they handled Hurricane Katrina and everything. But just for questioning, imagine you getting killed. So, and yeah, they weren't given the proper treatment or anything, and this is such an inhumane massacre. It's ridiculous. And oh yeah, remember the Lockerbie bombing? Hold on, let's go back. Yeah, remember that? I just talked about 270 people died and so on and so forth. That's actually in the middle of like a neighborhood, as you can see. This guy is the only person that was ever convicted of, or that was found guilty of of having any association with that bombing. And a few months ago, I believe, he was released on sympathetic charges. Yeah, and the U.S. and the Swiss or whatever government, they all basically begged Qaddafi, as sad as this may sound. They begged him to not throw a party or whatever, give him a hero's welcome. But as you can see, there was a huge welcome for him back home. I mean, they're welcoming a terrorist, and that's not his son, but that's not gonna be his son. But when as soon as he came, his escort, the person that took him, was Qaddafi's son, and then they threw a huge party for him for being released after killing that many people on such an act. So that just shows you that regardless if you want to deny it or not, saying that he wasn't associated with the Lockerbie bombing or anything, then why would he be throwing him a party as soon as he got out? He has prostate cancer. He'll probably die sometime soon anyway. But and then again, this is actually in 1986. This is where most of the troops like to go. I believe this is in Germany, yeah, in Berlin. Most of the troops would go over here, party, whatever club, and it was like a disco bar, and it was a place for them to, you know, get their minds off of everything that they were going through. And I mean, I have another cousin of mine. He's a Marine. He's been in Afghanistan. He's been in Iraq and everything. And I'm against war. I'm against the Iraq war. I'm against the Afghanistan war. I mean, I'm against war in general. Any kind of violence, I'm against it. So, but at the same time, I'm not going to tell you that he's not a good person. He's a very, very brave man. And for me to know that he's going through all this as a Marine, and then he would just want to get away just a little bit and go to a disco bar or go to a club or whatever, and just, you know, relieve his mind of some stress and just sit there or whatever. They planted a bomb under the DJ booth, and while there were so many Marines, I mean so many of the military officials were in there, it just blew up the whole disco area. There were about, let's see, it says right there, there was a killing of a Turkish woman and 3 U.S. servicemen and injuring 230 people. Most of them were injured permanently. So it wasn't like a small injury or whatever. And one of them, as you can see, they were like, I guess, Sergeant Kenneth Ford and Sergeant James died 2 months later. So they were like sergeants or whatever. And he also contributed to this. And for him to say that he's like, you know, giving way to, like, to claim that he's so Islamic and so on and so forth, to hold on to the name of Islam. Islam doesn't condone violence whatsoever. It will not say, go ahead and, you know, you can go ahead and kill a few people. There were, I'm pretty sure if y'all read into Islamic history, there were a few wars, but every single war that was fought by the Prophet was all on a form of self-defense. And there were rules of combat, and rules of combat said, you don't fight anyone, even if they're the enemy, unless they're fighting you. Unless they approach you, you can only defend yourself. You cannot oppress. So, and you cannot harm anyone who is defenseless. And you cannot harm women and